Hello, everyone. Have you ever had something in your life that turned out to be really dynamic, maybe way more than what you ever anticipated? I certainly have. In fact, there's probably a number of those things that um, in my life, but I've got one in particular in mind today that I'd like to share with you. Um, you can't tell my life story and not tell the part that it has included ministry for sure, but even narrowing that down, you can't tell the story of my life without including missions work and specifically short-term missions work. And that's in a kind of a bigger picture. I tell a lot of mission stories, but in kind of a bigger picture, I want to share with you today a wonderful thing that if you'll listen clear to the end of this story, you'll see a very dynamic point. So, I had the privilege of venturing out into this life of mine at a young age, experiencing the opportunity to travel and do ministry and to see God do some really cool things, to participate personally in God using me to be a real blessing to people just through encouraging words and acts of kindness and just being loving, right? And that plays out in lots of different ways that I won't unpack today, but it was a journey of walking um, in such a way that I was interested in participating in what I would call God's kingdom on this earth. And that led me in my late teen years and certainly into my 20s into the adventure of short-term missions, of the adventure of traveling with a group of people, with a team, not just by myself, but with a group, to in our case to foreign countries and and to be a part of the church in various ways in those countries. And for these short trips, I mean, some of them were as long as 6 weeks, but most of them were more like a week or 10 days. And, over the course of my life, I've done probably nearly 60 of those. I really should look that up and know that. But it's remarkable how something can become a part of your life and it grows. And when you start out, you have no idea in many ways what this is going to look like. It's no different if you start a business or those people that start other types of ministry, or sometimes even you plan a vacation or something, and you've got this idea and you do your planning and you organize things, and yet in the end you look back and go, oh wow, I didn't expect this or that. And we like it when those things are good. Sometimes they're hard things, bad things, right? um, but we venture out into this world of traveling ministry and short-term missions and going to other countries, and very quickly I discovered that I really liked this. I discovered that there was really something pretty special about experiencing culture, experiencing language, experiencing just different people and differences in their religious belief system. Even though we were always interacting with Christians, as you probably well know, Christians think in lots of different ways, and you go to another culture and it's even different yet, right? So experiencing this and touching it and tasting it was something that really grabbed me and that I just continued with. I just kept doing it, kept traveling, kept going with groups to various countries and experiencing these journeys of a short-term trip, going into another culture for the purpose of ministry, for the purpose of being a blessing. And the journey led to many things that I look back on and are such a delight. Certainly it grabbed my heart to participate in missions, to be a blessing, to maybe in a way that I have been fortunate, to have the resources for or gain knowledge of or whatever, that maybe I see in another place they don't have that, and this, so I can bring that and be a blessing and uplift them and encourage them and teach them and so forth. I mean, and of course, as you all know, in the course of that, you personally learn a lot and gain a lot. So we're out, we're going on these journeys, we're experiencing culture, we're meeting people, and it's growing in me. This desire for doing more of this, but also this desire for other people to experience, the amazing transformation of this. So it was two sides for me. It was the side of the missions work and going and being a blessing in places, and it, we often think of poverty, like financial, physical poverty, when we think we're going to go and meet a need. And by all means, that was true. We did a lot of things to help meet poverty needs, but it's way beyond that. It's an exchange of heart, and it's exchange of love, and exchange of ideas, and those things that we can. It's not just about pulling people up financially or getting them out of that poverty. It's about moving together forward with people, and iron sharpening iron kind of thing. Because as I said a moment ago, I learned a ton through this process at all, and I never I never thought of this as I have so much to give, as much as we have so much to give. There's a joint effort, and excuse me, when I go and when I give, I then receive in return. So that missional exchange, of course, was very, very important to me. I wanted to know that when we went into a location, into a country, into a specific church, that what we brought was something they really needed and was a blessing to them. That was important, and it was a good thing to pay attention to. The I was going to say the other, but what I really mean is another side would have been this side. So you've got the mission side, but then you've got this side of the team that's going to go do the mission. These teams were often made up of people that had never traveled before, or certainly had never done missions before, even if they'd traveled, done vacation-y kind of things. Maybe they've never traveled to another culture for the purpose of ministry, for the purpose of being a blessing. So you're taking people that we learned very quickly and experienced ourselves very quickly. You're taking people out of comfort zones. You're taking people into things that they're not familiar with. A lot of people are not familiar with public speaking or being in front of people, and even doing a skit or a puppet show, or these kinds of things. But certainly giving a testimony is very foreign, very, very unusual to them. And so we're taking people and we're entering them into this environment where they get to participate in being a blessing, and it's taking them out of their comfort zone to do so. Not to mention the fact that they're also out of their comfort zone just in their arena of culture. And that has so many dynamics to it, because, when you start thinking about culture and the experience of it, you've got customs and habits, you've got ways of doing things, you've got foods, you've got language. You've just got so many very different and rich, but unfamiliar dynamics that are being dealt with when a team travels to a place intentionally and for a purpose, but also for the first time, or certainly into the unknown, right? And that has its dynamics of being uncomfortable. So you're taking people and you're doing this with them. You're challenging them, and it's a rich, wonderful thing that has its complexities and its challenges, because you also find that in part of that process, we discovered that you're also taking people out of their daily routine. Not only are you taking them into another culture, you're taking them out of their own culture, their own friend group, their own, as I said, daily routine. They suddenly are in an environment where nearly everything is just at least a touch, if not dramatically different. That just turned out to be, such an amazing moment. I began to learn that these trips were, on that team side, were such a discipleship moment, and that grew in me big time. That became very, very, very important to me, because I started seeing the rich dynamic of taking a moment, and when I say a moment, I'm talking a week or 10 days or 2 weeks, and stepping out of your normal and stepping into something very different, because it does something. It opens up the heart. It opens up the mind. It helps you see what you're maybe blind to in that daily routine. That whole picture, which I hope I've described it well. If you've never had an experience like I'm describing, I hope I've described enough that you realize, wow, that was a moment for people. That was a moment of them having an opportunity to connect in their own heart with things that maybe they hadn't been, to connect with God, and to experience, something very different. And oftentimes, very often, in fact, it was unusual for people not to experience some real growth and some real opportunity at life change. Whether they took that opportunity or not, of course, is a different thing. But they have the opportunity at it. And man, so we've got the mission side and being a blessing in country in that church to those people. That was very, very important. We always wanted to make sure we were bringing something of value to them. Not just what we thought we had to give, but what they genuinely could utilize and benefit from. And then you had this side of the team that was touching and experiencing and moving into a very unique set of circumstances and therefore an opportunity at some real growth. Both sides rich and dynamic. And I began to see this, and that sucked me in even further because to this day, I I am I am driven to be a disciple of Christ and to inspire others and to equip others to do the same. It's not enough to just say I'm a believer, I accepted Christ, and now I have my ticket to heaven. I'm not saying those are bad things. I'm not saying that's not true, but there's a journey to live with God that is just rich and deep. And the more we can give our lives to that, the better it is. And that's what I saw in these mission experiences on both sides, the mission side and on the team member side, the opportunity at discipleship. And that just sucked me in further into this amazing ministry of providing these short-term mission opportunities for people to jump in and go on. I mean, it was awesome. It was really good. By the way, if you need to hit pause and get a cup of coffee, feel free to do so because I don't know about you, but it's a delight. Or get the drink that you enjoy. Mm, very good. So to continue on, I was really, really getting more and more committed to this way of discipleship. And I started learning that that's really what it was about. But as we grew things, we discovered, um, there was a lot of opportunity. And there was enough opportunity that my wife and I and the few people around us couldn't handle the workload as far as the number of these short-term mission trips that we would do in a year. So we realized what we need to do is we need to start developing leaders. And I, when I say develop leaders, please understand, it wasn't for us just about, say, writing a book with great leadership principles in it. I'm not saying those are bad. I've benefited immensely from books with great leadership principles. But what we were doing is we were setting out to participate in the actual development of leaders, which includes great leadership dynamics, but it includes walking with people and working hand in hand with them to develop them as leaders. So what we started doing is we would hold two long weekends at our ministry facility, which I'm actually sitting here in today. And twice a year, we would offer these weekend opportunities, and they were intense. I mean, it was a Friday night. We needed you to fly in on Friday, and we would meet on Friday evening, and then we would meet all day Saturday. I mean, I'm talking from 8 o'clock in the morning until sometimes 8 o'clock at night. So a long, long day of training, and then we would do the same on Sunday mornings, leaving Sunday afternoon for the opportunity for people to fly home, get back to work in their lives and all. But we would do that twice a year. And that was an important part of developing leaders, but that was the classroom part. That was the education part. And while it was needed and valuable, it served its role. What we really leaned into was the idea that you can learn a lot in one of these weekends and in the manual that we provide you, the book, that we provide you, but where you're really going to learn to lead and specifically lead a short-term mission trip is on the job. So in this case, on a trip. So our leadership, and please understand, I'm giving you some details here because they matter, because they're important, and because this story is rich because of them. So you've got these weekends of training, you've got a manual that they get trained with, but then they would go on trips, And it depended on the person, but in general, they went on at least two, and some people went on many, many more as an assistant leader. And as they advanced and learned and grew, the more they did, the more responsible they would become to actually be leading. So like you would get to the point to where you'd been an assistant leader on numerous trips, and maybe that one that was probably your final assistant lead, you pretty much led that trip, but you had what we called a certified team leader right there with you. And from the beginning of that process to where you were nearly completing your training, that certified team leader was there to teach you and instruct you and walk with you and help you learn what was in the instruction in the weekends of training and in the manual. Learning it on the field, on the job, just became priceless. But are you hearing this? These are not just details. What's happening in that whole process, but specifically in that assistant leading role, is discipleship. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I knew that right out of the gate, that immediately I'm like, oh yeah, this is going to be a rich, amazing discipleship program. No, no, no. What I knew right out of the gate is we needed leaders, so we're going to train leaders, and we started doing that. It was later on that I caught on that, oh wow, as much as that team member, I've always got the team over here, you notice? The team side here, the mission side here. As rich and dynamic as that team member side was, and the discipleship process in that, with our leaders, it was, can I say, it was on steroids. It was just, it was rich and dynamic. And we discovered that people were finding that they could go through this training that I've just described to you, and they could then take that training and use it in the short-term leading process, but also they could take it into maybe their business or their job, their church, these same skill sets with their family, anywhere where they had an opportunity to lead, to guide people, to instruct, to be an example. They could take what they were learning in this short-term mission training process that we were providing and use it in other areas of life, which I loved. I loved the idea that they were learning something that could then be applied in other ways. To me, that's so much of what discipleship is about. One thing builds on another. And as we connect with Jesus in a richer and deeper way and learn to live in the fullness, as it says in Ephesians, the fullness of the life that God has given us through Jesus, oh my goodness. You learn that richness and that fullness and learn to walk in that life that God gives us in one area, you apply it to others. So we're training these leaders, and eventually as the years went on and we were down the road a ways, I started realizing, this leadership training is the gem in what we're doing, because it's creating rich and deep discipleship journeys for people. And they're taking that and they're using it. And it wasn't so much, I don't mean to sound that it was all to our credit, because it wasn't. It was to those people's credit that they leaned in and enjoyed and really gained value and benefit from it. So I tell you all this to tell you a story as I close this video. We had an experience that has just been rich and deep and priceless for me. And I won't give you this leader's name, because I didn't ask their permission, but if perchance they're watching, you'll know it was you. And to me, this is so precious and amazing. There may be other people that maybe you've been in our circle enough that you'll know who this is, and that's fine. I just don't want to use her name here on this video. I just exposed it that it's a her, narrowed it down that much. But Sandra and I had gone to the airport. We live in Colorado, so we'd gone to the airport in Denver, Colorado to pick up leaders. They were coming home, having led a short-term mission team. And they were arriving back in Denver and, of course, needed a ride home from the airport. So that's what we were there to do, is to pick them up from the airport. At the end of this mission trip, this is not an unusual, unfamiliar thing. We'd done this many a time. And it was always pretty cool because, you're picking these leaders up, and they're going to have stories. They're going to have, they're coming off what was always, sometimes they were more challenging than others, but it was always good. And you just, you were looking forward to hearing what they had to say. This time was a little different because this lady got off the plane And I won't go into detail, but if you've never traveled internationally, there's a whole process you have to go through, as you well know, to not just security processes in our airports, but the whole customs process and so forth. So, you can imagine these trips are exhausting and they require a lot of us and so forth. And so this leader gets off the plane, and we're there to pick her up, and she makes a beeline for us. Now, that's not like crazy unusual, but in this case, I could tell, oh, there's an intensity here. And she immediately, she walked up. This is how I remember it. Do I remember it perfectly right? I don't know, but this is how I remember it. She made a beeline for us and she came up and said, I have to tell you something before anyone else does. And I'm just like, okay, do tell. I'm intrigued. So they had either the end of these international travel trips or an intense schedules of ministry, and you're leading a group of people, and that requires a lot of you, and so you come home, you're tired, you're drained, and at the end you're asked to do the travel back home and including customs. And she said, I have to tell you that when I got to, we got off the plane and we landed in America and we had to go through that customs process. She said, I just was exhausted. I was spent. It's been an incredible journey, but an exhausting journey. And I smarted off to that customs agent, and he didn't like it. She said, I got not detained, but slowed down in the process because of my response and my snappiness and my attitude, just because I was tired and I felt like whatever. I mean, whatever her reasons were, she just responded real negatively. Yeah. And she said, I feel bad that some of the team saw me, do this. It was a bad example. I know better. I've done this many a times. I shouldn't have done this. And I'm really glad it wasn't worse than it was, she said. And I said, well, listen, okay, cool. I said, so I have one question. What did you learn? For me, because I was not developed, and guys, get this. I mean, if you're still listening to this video, this is the moment I wanted you to get in this story. I was not just interested in developing and designing out leaders that could get the job done. Sure, that's important, but this was a discipleship process. So when this leader came to me and said, I screwed up, I made a mistake, I know better than this, I've been trained and I've done this enough, I know better than to do this. She clearly regretted it, was clearly apologetic, etc. I didn't care that she'd screwed up. Honestly, that was not the concern or the issue to me. What I wondered was genuinely, what did you learn? What will you be able to take from this seemingly negative experience? What did you learn that you'll be able to take and move forward with and use in your journey, specifically as a disciple of Christ, but just as a solid, good human being? What did you learn that you can go forward with? That's what mattered to me, because I knew that what I was seeing standing in front of me was a quality leader. I wasn't looking for perfection. I was looking for people that were willing to learn and grow, own their stuff, learn and grow and do better, improve, and not just in leading mission teams, but just in life, and taking that richness of that learning moment. That's really what I was after. So it was fun to not just in that moment of picking them up at the airport, but in the following, probably honestly, years, to be able to, with this leader, to be able to navigate forward. And, to me, she didn't do anything that, she didn't put the team in jeopardy, really. I mean, if she had gotten like detained or something, she wasn't the only leader, so somebody else could have taken the team on. But it could have gotten a lot worse. It's beautiful that it didn't. I'm glad that it didn't. But at the same time, none of that was really what mattered. What mattered is, did you learn something? Can you move forward with this? Can you do something different with this? I mean, that's pretty powerful. I think I'm going to leave you kind of with this as I end the story there, that life's not about being perfect. It's about being teachable and learning and growing and moving forward. And even in this really pretty intense environment of developing leaders for, the purpose of leading a group of people into an international environment, lots of complexity to it. The same thing applies in our day to day, in our lives with our families, with our friends, in our business, in our work environment, in our churches. This opportunity, to be a blessing is really something pretty cool. So, I'm just going to leave you with that. You apply it how you want, but it's been a rich, deep experience for me. I'm so glad that over the years, and that even to this day, I have the opportunity to participate in the discipleship process, and to move forward with people in this daily journey of life and being a believer. So, listen, I'll leave you with that. Thank you so much for watching. I love doing Catalyst Chronicles. I love telling these stories and participating with you in this way through these videos. And man, I just wish you a rich and a deep day. Hopefully you can take some of these things and apply them in your life. So God bless you. Thank you for watching. And until next time.